So I think it would be safe to say that romantic relationships are very in the forefront of our culture, of our society, in the world we live in now and throughout history. Romantic relationships have just been very in the forefront of everyone's focus and priorities and just a point of interest, whether it's the movies that we watch or the songs that we listen to. It's just kind of everywhere. I think that's safe to say. And as much as that might serve a purpose, I feel like that can cause a lot of us to put romantic love, whether that's finding a partner or keeping the one we have or dating in general, to put that all on quite a pedestal. I don't know if anyone else finds this, but I find it's quite easy for romantic love to kind of dominate our conversations and our attention and focus. And it's quite easy, I find, for it to kind of eclipse everything else. And, this could be because it is so front and center in our culture. Or, it could simply be the fact that it's fun for us, dating and relationships and love and lust and everything that comes with that is like, something that people love doing. It's interesting, it's fun for us. It could be that. I think romantic relationships can be such like an all-consuming experience. Even if you're not even in a relationship, dating or situationships or whatever situation you're in that's vaguely in the romantic love realm, it can really be an all-consuming thing in a way that nothing else seems to have that kind of hold over us. So, it makes sense in that way too, that we kind of all as a society have like an obsession with it almost. And like, it's not even necessarily a conscious choice that anyone makes, I don't think. It just happens to be, like I said, just very front and center. And, I do think there's perks to that. However, recently I've been thinking about and kind of wondering if there would be perks to actively decentering romantic relationships, actively treating it as no more important than your friendships or your work or your hobbies or anything else that you're passionate about. I do wonder if, and like, I'm 22, I don't fucking know. Like, this podcast is honestly just a place to like chuck around ideas and like, I don't know. I might not even agree with half the shit I'm saying in like a week. Like, I don't know. But I do wonder if romantic love, romantic relationships, and dating wasn't so in the forefront of our lives. I wonder if there'd be perks to that. I wonder if it would be healthier. Because obviously it's been this way for a long time, which makes me think it serves a purpose. Because I think a lot of the time, if something's been the same way for absolutely years, then it's probably for a reason. However, like, again, I'm 22. I don't know how long it's been this way. I don't know if that is fairly modern or that it's been that way since like cavemen. I don't fucking know. I didn't do my research. Can you tell? I didn't do my research. I'm just kind of, I don't know. It's been crossing my mind recently because I think I've been seeing a lot of content about decentering romantic relationships and decentering male validation and men and dating and focusing on, yourself a little bit more. Because I do think, due to the nature of everyone being fairly focused on dating and love and things, it can kind of make you feel like, you're not complete without that, or like there's something missing, or like you need to be actively pursuing a partner, or you need to be dating, or like there's something wrong if your priorities lay elsewhere. I do think that's possibly a con to how central it is in our brains and in culture, is it can kind of make you feel not enough. I don't know, this is kind of a bigger conversation, because then you could go into the conversation of why makeup and magazines and everything making people, especially women, not feel, like there's always something wrong with you. You always feel like there's something to be fixed. And that's just again, the culture. Like everything you look at is kind of, you need to do this and you need to buy this and you need to be better in this way and blah, blah, blah. And you could kind of link the two and say that it's for the purpose of dating and love and being attractive and the whole thing. Just like, there's definitely possible cons and things that possibly aren't the healthiest about our obsession and our focus with love and dating. It can breed this feeling of like needing to change in certain ways or be more attractive, or you need to have this and you need to have that. But like I said, I've seen a lot of content about decentering your love life in terms of, maybe still putting time and energy into it if you want to, but kind of in a more balanced, healthy way, not in a way where it's dominating your life. Do you know what I mean? But similarly, I've also seen a lot of content about decentering men in terms of women shifting men's place in their kind of interpersonal world, in their own narrative, in their own focus. Being more intentional with how much focus they place on male validation and things that are so subconscious and so kind of drilled into our brains. And women kind of, obviously I'm speaking about women because I'm a woman and this is kind of some content I've seen that I'm stating my thoughts on, but obviously change the gender and anything you want. Like, this is all interchangeable. But I do think, especially with women, it has been very drilled in for, again, so fucking long that, like, there is this need to be attractive to a man and to, and to be digestible enough that you're attractive, but to be interesting enough that you're not boring. There's a lot of, like, mental gymnastics that goes on without you even noticing, I think, as a woman, just about what you should be doing and how you should act and what you should want. And I think that's kind of the vibe that I've gotten from the decentering men content that I've personally seen everywhere. Is it's women choosing to be a little bit more intentional with how important do I actually want men and dating to be in my life right now, rather than without thinking about it, just kind of placing importance on it. Because like I said, I do think if you aren't actively deciding that for yourself, it's quite easy for it to just be something that affects your behavior and changes things like how you dress, what you might post on social media, how you might hold yourself, how you might do your hair, like all these things. It really bleeds into a lot of things, I think, as women. And I have seen a lot of that content of women deciding to change their priorities a little bit, the ranking of it, and just start putting their own feelings and experiences and ambitions and goals, not having that as secondary, as having that as like, this is my life and I'm kind of taking control of that. And I'm not going to always have that, my feelings as secondary to a man's or someone that I'm dating or anyone else's, really. And I think this in general is a good thing to be doing. I just think in particular it takes a little bit more unwiring as a woman, because I think you've kind of been trained almost to be quite far the other way. So you have to really kind of work to get it back to neutral to then decide what you want to do. Do you know what I mean? I do think it's a good investment of energy as a girl to do that, because I think otherwise, not to be dramatic, but it can alter the way that your life pans out if you're taking more control of your life and self-validation, you're shifting from maybe caring a little bit too much about male validation, shifting that to self-validation and, just being more authentic and not giving so much of a fuck about whether or not that is attractive or desirable or easily digestible to a man. Deciding that that's less important than you feeling fulfilled in your life and feeling authentic and getting what you want from your own life. I think that is so important. And I do think if you don't really actively do that, I think you can spend quite a lot of time feeling like you need something from men, or like there's something missing if you're not attracted, or if someone doesn't want to date you or something. You can feel so fucking rejected because you've spent so much of your kind of time and energy trying to be what other people want. And I think if you just, like I said, shift your priorities a little bit and maybe put your own fulfillment higher up than being anything to anyone else, I think you're much more likely to feel fulfilled by your own life, But I think doing things like double checking your motives to be sure you aren't changing to impress a man, whether that's, why do I want to post this on my story right now? Is it because I like it, or is it because of anything to do with being attractive to men? Do you know what I mean? Or like, do I actually like this outfit, or do I just think, do you know what I mean? Just like double checking with, are you making your choices for reasons that you're happy with? Because it's one thing if, like, if you're going on a date or something and you're like, I actively want to wear something that I feel like sexy in, that's different because you're choosing to. But I think it's quite easy, like I said, as a woman to accidentally just not think about that kind of thing and to just dress and act in a way that's like appealing to the male gaze, because that is kind of how we've been like trained to be, if you know what I mean. So I think it's a good thing to get in the habit of checking, like, am I doing this for myself or am I doing it for a silly reason? And also, you know, making sure that your conversations aren't always centered around men and dating and your boyfriend or whatever. Like I said, even if you're in a relationship, this can still be a thing. Like, it's not necessarily if you haven't got a partner. Like, you could still be in a relationship and, like, if all you talk about is your man, you know, that's still, you know, there's much more to you, you know? And I think it's important to realize that there's a lot more to you and a lot more to talk about and a lot more value that you have beyond whether you have a partner or not. So yeah, I do think there's definitely something to be said about maybe decentering romantic relationships in general, but also, like, it is especially a good question, I think, for women to ask themselves, like, where are you at in terms of the male validation craving? Do you know what I mean? Like, checking in with that is kind of like, it's the same topic I'm talking about, but it's just an extra little strain of what I'm talking about is, like, to women in particular, of like, check in with that, because that's like ingrained in you a little bit. So, like, check in with it. Do you know what I mean? Just a little bit of advice. We've all done it. We've all been there. We've all, men, women, anyone, like, we've all been there where you're just being a little bit desperate or a little bit, you know, you're not being yourself or whatever. And part of that is just growing up and growing into yourself and not being so, you know, craving validation from anything. But it's definitely a good thing to check in with. Back to the more, like, general relationship side. I guess obviously I am speaking from my age, my gender, my experience, you know, all I can do. But sometimes I do think a con to the general obsession that we all as people have with our love lives and, like, the pursuit of a partner is, I think it can cause us sometimes to get lazy with our own lives because we're too busy kind of pouring all of our energy and time into this, like, one particular area of our lives, our love lives, when there's so many areas to our lives. You know, that's kind of just one. And I think it can cause us to get a little bit slack and a little bit lazy with the rest of the areas, you know? And that's not to say you can't have, like, an active dating life or be in a relationship or be married or anything, you know, and have, like, other focuses and stuff. Like, really, that you should, you know, that's what a healthy relationship or a healthy dating life is. But I think it can sometimes, like, override our desire and, like, our interest to focus on the other shit, you know, like our own personal development, our own hobbies, our own things that we would be interested in otherwise, you know? I think it can kind of derail that a little bit because, like I said, love, dating, lust, all of it is very all-consuming. It just is. It's very, like, distracting of a thing. And that's not to say that's, like, a bad thing. You know, being in love and having a crush and all of those things are very fun, and, like, to an extent, life would be boring if we didn't have it. Like, I think life would be boring without that. But I don't know how much of it is just human nature, and that's just how we get when we, like, are in love or have a crush, or if it's, like, just the fact that it's so front and center of everything that it makes everything else kind of secondary. It can do that. I think it can make your ambitions and your goals and your hobbies and shit like that, just, like, it can make it feel secondary. And again, that's one thing that, like, if you choose to do that, that's different. It's just about, like, the individual making that choice of what's important to them themselves rather than society and culture pushing that down your throats. Do you know what I mean? Because if for you, like, getting married or whatever is, like, just one of your absolute main priorities, then that's fine. Of course that's fine. But it's almost like, I think there is a sense of, like, feeling like it should be that important to you and, like, it should be the forefront of your life. And I think sometimes that can push people to put more energy and time into it than they might want to if it wasn't so central in everything and in every song we listen to and in every fucking film we watch and in all of our conversations, it wasn't bleeding into like everything ever, then maybe we wouldn't have that issue of like, again, I don't know. I'm kind of just like chatting shit, but like maybe we wouldn't then have that issue where it overrides everything and it kind of dominates everything. We might be able to go about it in a more balanced way, the same way that we can with other areas of our lives. You know, we can have hobbies and it doesn't affect our work, or we could work and like do stuff on the weekend, it doesn't affect our work life. You know, we can handle it with everything else, but with our love lives, it's almost like it just crashes through everything else in a way that like again, I don't know if that's just human nature and like we're just wired that way, or if it's just like society. I don't fucking know. But that's like a con. I think it can make everything else kind of secondary. And I do think as well, because love and dating is so intoxicating and all consuming, it works so well as a distraction. If you're feeling particularly low or low on self-esteem, or maybe a bit bored, or maybe a bit rejected by something else in your life, dating is like an amazing distraction or an amazing plaster over that, you know, that will instantly shoot you some validation, some dopamine. And I just think if you're not careful, you can end up leaning on your love life as kind of like a crutch, where you don't feel competent and like complete without it. You know, dating's become this kind of classic cliche like fallback when something's going wrong in your life, or you're feeling down about something, or maybe you're going through a hard time or a breakup, there's a rebound of something. It's just like a cliche. If there's something going wrong, dating, love, relationships, situationships, they're so lent on because they're so distracting and all consuming. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I do think the general main con to romantic love, romantic relationships being so in our faces all the time is that it can veer us away from other important things in life. It can make them feel less important and less valuable and, you know, worthwhile. It can make, you know, even in this world, like marriage and having kids and moving in with your partner and stuff is so celebrated, and it's so like, you know, there's obviously the natural like timeline that people feel pressure to follow and stuff because it's so celebrated. You get engaged, you get married, and these things are great. Like, nothing wrong with these things. They should be celebrated. They're exciting. But because it's so normal for that to be the case, it's like other things are just not treated with the same excitement and celebration and importance, even though to the individual, it might be just as important as getting married might be to the next person, you know? But yeah, again, I do think for women in particular, I think having men on a pedestal can really put your life through like a tailspin. like it can so heavily distract you from your own ambitions and goals and fulfillment. And I think that's kind of heartbreaking to think about how many women haven't gone after certain things or certain goals or done what they want with their lives because they've been made to feel like there's no other option than your love life and the pursuit of a partner and being attracted to a partner and all that is like, that has to be more important. That's just, you know, you think about how many amazing inventions and things might be in the world right now if like women didn't feel that way, because maybe then they would have like put their energy elsewhere, but it kind of has felt like there's been no other option. Do you know what I mean? You know, I do feel like it's ridiculously common for women to sacrifice everything they want in order to support and keep a man. And, you know, so many women have ended up with lives that aren't really theirs or like aren't what they wanted at all because, you know, they thought that that's how it should be. You know, as much as it's not to the extreme that it was maybe like in my grand's age, you know, where we're all working and shit now and like have a lot more control over what we want to do with our lives, we still encounter like constant male dominated situations and like patriarchal fucking like tones bleeding into everything. It still is very present. You know, like even in relationships that I've seen my friends in and my family in and I've been in, and like women taking this like rehab girlfriend role of like, of, you know, feeling like they need to fix men, or they need to mother them, or like teach them how to be fucking like decent people, you know. This is so common, and I'm not saying men have never been in this boat, because I'm sure there's plenty of men out there that have poured energy into this similar kind of thing. But like when you really think about it, that's still very present. Like the whole being a girlfriend and mothering your boyfriend and like almost like raising them partially because they don't know how to fucking like be or act or treat people or cook or clean or like all these things. And it's just like there's still so many women now taking on that role. And yes, you could say, but women have the control to not do that. Like if they don't want to do that, they shouldn't do it. And I agree, they shouldn't. However, it is still there, the like thing instilled in women that they need to be very patient and very forgiving and very, you know, gentle. And, you know, it's like this feminine trait to be like really, really soft and really, really like overly patient and forgiving. When maybe really you should be standing up for yourself, you should be leaving, you should be calling people out a little bit more, you know. But those things, they're cold, they're harsh, and they're like, you're gonna be single forever if you're fucking like that, because like men don't want that, you know. That is still fucking there, you know, whether it is people actually saying those words or it's just in the vibes of the world. Do you know what I mean? In the vibes of the world, it's still very much there. And you know, as much as it may seem minor or small for like girls to spend a couple years or whatever, few months here and there, whatever, on just, you know, being too forgiving and too patient with men that like they just shouldn't be dating. It seems kind of like minor. We've all had like shitty dating situations that like wasted time, whatever. I think it's just too fucking common. Like women like have better things to be doing. Do you know what I mean? Especially in our 20s, like speaking to girls right now, we have better things to be doing. We have more important things to be doing. We have things we could be pouring our time and energy into that are so much more fulfilling to us. And like, it's just not our job. You know what I mean? It's just not your job to stay in things that you don't want to be in, to try and teach someone how to treat you correctly all the time, to try and just fix people all the time. Like, it's just, again, this like maybe is a slightly different conversation, but it's just not your job. You don't need to feel guilty for being like, fuck this. I have other things I'd rather do. This is not my responsibility. It's not my fault. If, you know, you can't handle being alone, or you don't know how to like cook yourself dinner, you're not going to die if I leave. You're not my child. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not my responsibility. These are just things that you know, I just think it's a massive con of feeling like dating and men and all of that is just like so in the center. It makes people put up with shit sometimes, I think, that they just otherwise wouldn't, you know. If it felt more okay and respected and acceptable to put your energy elsewhere and fuck off and like just focus on your career or just travel with your friends or just do that, you know, it's obviously becoming a lot more normal, but like I would still say that's fairly new. So it still takes a level of unwiring, you know. I just think standing up for yourself and having standards and stuff, we should be doing it. To everyone, and especially to the girls, we should be doing this. Like, it's not cute anymore to waste fucking years of your life supporting and aiding and being gentle and forgiving and patient with people that are just like actually holding you back for fucking decades. Do you know what I mean? There's people that would like be married to people for years, and this is the case, and it's like they just spend their entire like purpose has become making someone else happy or like fulfilled and like competent, and it's just like no one else's job. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, this is so many conversations in one, but I do think, speaking to girls in particular, I think the obsession with love lives and dating and everything can make girls end up with idiots that just fucking waste their time and waste years of their lives. And that's because a lot of the focus on romantic love does breed that kind of women need to be a certain way and they need to be attractive and they need to be this and they need to be that, and then it gets people stuck in shitty situations, whereas I don't think that would necessarily so much be the case if we took love, like romantic love and dating, off that pedestal. I don't think we'd have that issue as often. I think people would feel more confident to just walk away from things. Again, maybe I'm fucking wrong. I don't know. This is just kind of like some thoughts, some opinions. Um, honestly, just thought of it on the spot. But I do think everyone would feel a little bit more comfortable to be like, this doesn't feel correct, and to stand up for themselves a bit more and have a bit more of a backbone and take a bit more initiative with their life. I think people would do that a bit more if we didn't feel so compelled to date and get married and have boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff. Like, it's a great thing to do, but also, like, do it because you want to do it. Do it when you want to do it. Maybe right now it's not priority. Maybe in 5 years you'll want to do it more. Maybe you won't. Who fucking cares? Like, it's just not. I don't know. I don't know if it's as deep as it's been made out to be. I think there's so many other things to life. And again, gonna speak to the women quickly, but again, applies to anyone. But I'm a woman, so like it's just like I'm also relate to that experience, obviously. Something that I think helps take men kind of out of the center of your focus all the time, and kind of gets you to a place of like, it's something I like, but there's also other things I like. Do you know what I mean? I'm like wording things so shit today, but some things that I think that help are, one, I think having girlfriends that aren't man obsessed. I think some people, you can sit down for like a drink or dinner and all they want to talk about is dating and men. You do whatever you want, but for you personally, if you're not wanting dating to be that on a pedestal in your life, having girlfriends that are content and driven and happy and enjoying their lives regardless of dating, I think is so beneficial. I have experienced this too. I have experienced this where I have friends that they want to do fun shit. They want to go swimming. They want to go paddleboarding. They want to go, cooking. They want to go to like do shit that's interesting. And it's not all centered around dating and men and getting dressed up and going out for drinks. And like, I love doing that sometimes, but I think having friends that aren't male obsessed, like, I don't know how else to word it, but having friends where there's other things they want to do and there's other things they want to talk about, and you can go all day without mentioning dating or anything. I think it's important to have some friends like that and spend some time like that, to really like let yourself sink into the other things in life. That's just a tip. I think another thing that also helps in terms of male validation is you need to find something that you care about more than your impulse to be desired by men. You need to find, whether you're in a relationship, this is like honestly one of the biggest pieces of advice I would ever give. Whether you're in a relationship or you're single, whatever you're in, find something that you care about more than dating or your boyfriend or something else. Like, find something you're more passionate about than dating, because it keeps it in its place. Do you know what I mean? I think it's quite easy to let that like get up and become really fucking important and like such a source of validation. Find a hobby or an interest or a passion of some sort, I don't care what it is, that you care about more. Because then it will always keep dating in its place. It will never feel like an end-all be-all situation, whether you're in a relationship or not. You will feel fulfilled whether or not that's present in your life. And I think that is just a huge piece of advice. Like, for me, this podcast I absolutely love. I put so much time and effort into this. It really keeps me feeling creative and reflective, and it keeps my brain active, and it gives me a hobby, and I love it. And I think that's so healthy to me, whether I've had this podcast, whether I've been in a relationship or not, and it's given me that focus and that kind of feeling of like, this is my thing and like I love it. And I think having something in your life that when you're doing it, you're not thinking about your partner or your love life or your dating. It's a distraction in a way, but not intentionally. Obviously this podcast is not created as a distraction from men in my life, like, at all. But it's something that like I get so creatively into that I could do this for hours and I haven't even thought about anything else because I genuinely love it. that it gets me into like a zone. You know, find something that you feel that way about. And I know that's not necessarily the easiest thing, but like try and find something that gets you excited that's just nothing to do with dating. I think it's so important. So that's a huge piece of advice for women, for anyone. It's just, it makes you so much more fulfilled. And, you know, working on swapping male validation for self-validation too. You know, there's so much fucking content on that. There's books and books and books about that. Oh my God, there was a series. Oh my God, I've read so many books about that. I read one called The Unexpected Joy of Being Single. I can't remember who wrote it, but I loved that book. Whether you're single or not, it's an amazing book that really makes you realize how much more there is to life. And I remember at the end, it has this kind of analogy of like a house, like a doll house almost, that's open so you can see all the rooms. And it kind of, I can't remember exactly, but it sticks in my brain of like every room is a different part of your life. And your love life is just one of those rooms. And like there's so much going on, and there's your family, and there's like your friends and your childhood and your hobbies and nature, and there's like exercise, and there's podcasts you love, and there's albums you love, and there's like things you love doing, and all of these things. And it's almost like whether or not the light is on, it was something to do with the light is on in like all those rooms, and whether or not the light is on in the relationship one doesn't fucking matter. There's still a house full of shit going on in there. Do you know what I mean? That book I loved. And also the series, what's it called? Oh, I don't remember. You Do You is one of them. The Art of Not Giving a Fuck or something. I'll leave it in the description. There's so many books on that. On learning to like just fulfill yourself, validate yourself. Again, there's gonna be podcast after podcast about that. I think I've even made a podcast about validation, and this one's kind of about it. I can make more. I could talk about it all day. But that is huge. They're just like a few tips that like, if you want to decenter it a bit, and if you think that would be better for you and you don't really like that it's on such a pedestal in your life, there's some tips, you know, some things that keep you grounded in yourself and stop you from dropping who you are and your authentic self and your personality and your interests. Stop dropping and trying to morph yourself into what anyone else wants, you know, and actually just staying grounded in yourself. I think that's so important. But overall, I do think it's quite possible that relationships would flourish if we didn't put so much pressure on them. I do think it's quite possible that our love lives would be a smoother ride. I don't think there'll ever be a smooth ride, but I think there'd be a smoother ride maybe if the entire world didn't have so much pressure and such like an emphasis and like a spotlight on dating and love lives and shit. I think we'd all just chill a bit and maybe do what we want a little bit more and not force things and entertain things that are like wasting our time, and not like, I don't know, I think we just get on with our lives maybe a bit more. Maybe, I don't know. I also don't know if it's even possible for our society and our culture to get to a place where we're not all love obsessed, because I just don't know if I'd ever see that happening. You know, I also think it's quite possible that we would feel more overall fulfilled by our lives if we more often put our own personal goals and things at the top of our priorities instead. It's quite possible that we'd feel more generally happy and fulfilled with our lives if we gave them the chance to be our priority more often, you know? I think we all do like a decent job at that, but there is still like a subconscious amount of like emphasis we put on our love lives, I guess. But honestly, let me know your thoughts. Again, give me a week and I might have a complete different set of thoughts. This is kind of just me speaking my mind about what I feel right now, some thoughts that have come to my mind. But do let me know your thoughts. Do you think it would have a positive impact on us, you know, individually and as like our culture as a whole, if romantic love was taken slightly down a notch in terms of our priorities and focus? Do you think that would have a positive effect? Do you think it would affect anything? Do you think it would have a negative effect? Let me know. It's an interesting one, but I do generally think if something's been a certain way for a long time, or like something just is the way it is, it's good to question it. It's good to think, do I agree with that? Am I happy with it being that way in my life, or do I want to change it? Because you obviously don't have the power to change society and like our culture as a whole yourself, but you have the power to change your own like priorities and your own interpersonal world and what you think about and what you spend your time and energy on. And you know, that's huge. Like, perception is reality. So if you don't agree with it, like, it's good to question things and, like, make choices for yourself, you know, and not be, like, influenced by outside sources that you don't even know are, like, influencing you. And I do think this is one, like, this is one that I do think can quite often influence us all to act a certain way. So it's good to, like, pay attention to, like, do we want that or not, you know? So I'm gonna go. Thank you for listening. Do let me know your thoughts, and I will speak to you next Tuesday.